Hi, everybody. It's Patricia Coughlin again. I wanted to talk to you today about a defense that's very common but all too little discussed, and that's the defense of introjection. We talk a lot about projection, the patient projecting onto us and so on, but children very often introject, literally swallow and take in disavowed feelings, beliefs, and attitudes of their parents. And it's very important to understand this process so we don't make the same mistake of thinking these are really feelings and beliefs and attitudes that actually belong to the patient. Last week I did a webinar in which one of the cases revealed this process. As I was pointing out the patient's characteristic defenses of helplessness, subservience, passivity, she began to feel irritated and angry with me, and I encouraged that. We got a breakthrough of rage toward me with an impulse to strangle me that was then linked to feelings toward her mother in an actual situation in which at the age of 12, she and her mother were literally fighting in the bathroom. Her mother had her by the throat and was banging her head against the wall. And she had always remembered that, but what she had buried was her reactive rage and wanting to kill the mother. What was then de-repressed, and again, this really highlights the importance of understanding the memories, dreams, and associations that follow the breakthrough. This is not a behavioral treatment where we are simply trying to extinguish anxiety, but to get to the unconscious origin of the patient's symptoms and suffering. And so guilt over her own sadistic rage was certainly one factor. She did feel deep guilt and grief over the loss of what had been the good mother. But she then recovered a memory of having been left at the age of 4 in charge of her infant sister. The mother went into a store while she left my patient at the age of 4 with the infant in a pram. And as the baby started crying, the patient as a 4-year-old started to, try to shake and rock the pram to soothe the baby, but somehow the carriage was knocked over and all kinds of people rushed to help. And when the mother came out of the store and saw this hubbub, but of course people were looking at her, right? Like, what the heck are you doing, leaving an infant in the care of a 4-year-old? And the mother clearly could not tolerate her own guilt and projected it literally into the patient, telling the patient that she had a death wish toward her sister. So this is where you also see what we call multiple causation, that there's not often more than one factor contributing to the development of a conflict or a symptom. And in this case, she did have mixed feelings toward her sister. She was the firstborn. She had this close relationship with her mother. Then her sister is born. The mother's attention turns to her sister. But then on top of that, the mother literally turns against her. So she not only had her own guilt about, some destructive feelings toward both the mother and the sister, but she had literally introjected the mother's projected guilt. She took that on, right, and thought, oh, that must be right. That must be me. I'm really a bad, horrible person. So this happens frequently. I can think of another couple cases right off the bat. And in fact, all 3 of the cases I'm going to discuss here are in my first book. So that one was the woman on the emotional roller coaster. Another one where this featured prominently, this introjection, was in the case of the masochistic artist. her father had a preoccupation with her as a sexual being from an early age. But again, he projected that onto and into her. So that, for example, when she was excited about accompanying him to a high school basketball game, he told her the reason she was so excited was because she got to see the boys running around in their shorts, right? Now, again, a child doesn't have the capacity to have a separate mind and to think, my dad is, off his rocker here. This is his concern that he's putting on to me. No, she accepted it. She internalized it. And it had a profound impact on her whole sense of self, that if she had any kind of sexual desire as a woman, that it somehow made her a tart, a slut, a no-good so-and-so. Okay, and then finally, in the man with primary impotence, he had a mother who was completely engulfing and extremely preoccupied, again, with him, and really invaded his body. I mean, at the age of 7 or 8, she was still going into the bathroom with him and wiping his bottom after he would have a bowel movement and so on. And she was always trying to keep him close. His father worked nights, and so the mother took him, the patient, into bed with her because she was afraid to be alone at night. So she was extremely intrusive, and he would be trying, especially as an adolescent, to get away from her. And especially because her desire to be so physically close to him took on, he said, sort of a crazy, lascivious sort of flavor. And when he tried to get some distance from her, she would lash out at him and really, in a sense, put a hex on him. Tell him that he, again, was evil and that he should suffer the rest of his life. And in particular, he should suffer as she had suffered. And he, in fact, we then discovered, had been playing out that prophecy. So again, the opening and the unlocking of the unconscious, which often happens on the heels of an intense emotional experience, will provide the memories that will shed light on the origin of the patient's conflicts. And so these feelings like guilt and shame and the beliefs about them are often not theirs, right? But are actually the introjected projections of their parents. And so again, in that case of the man with primary impotence, as he was dealing then with the reality of who his mother was and the impact it had on him, as he was facing the rage toward her, he said, it's as if she's in me, right? That projection, he had literally swallowed her whole. And he said, I want her out, out, out. And so the process of facing the rage was really a process of ousting that introject, right? So he was able to get her out, right, and become finally separate and autonomous from her. So I think it's very important to understand this process of introjection and how to work with it so that the patient, again, can claim who they really are and, again, oust or get rid of the introjected projections of others. So I hope this is helpful. I look forward to your questions and comments. Bye-bye.